Hey guys, Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions. So today, let's get into the FiiO K3 versus the E10K. I've been looking forward to this comparison for quite a while. Had to get all my ducks in a row, but let's get right into what's in the box. So with the E10K, you're getting the amp DAC, obviously, 4 button adhesives, so 2 pairs of button adhesives, a micro USB cable, a quick start guide, and a warranty card. Now with the K3, you are getting the amp DAC, 4 adhesive strips. They're like longer in width. With the K3, instead of a micro USB cable, we're getting Type C, and we'll get into that a little bit later. A quick start guide and warranty card also come with the K3. So let's get right into build and features. The K3 feels, it's more elegant, like it's a little bit heavier at 83 grams. My scale weighs it in at 83. The K3 is a 2018 update. The E10K is more boxier, and it's kind of older looking, like it's kind of dated. The K3 makes the E10K look, it kind of pales in comparison as far as look and aesthetic goes. The K3 is more rounded, and it's sleeker, and it just looks a lot better on your desk. Not to say that the E10K is bad. It definitely shows its age when you put the two side by side. So the volume knob on the K3 is also a bit larger than the older E10K, and it makes a little bit louder of a click when you turn it. But both knobs are very solid. It's just that the K3 is definitely updated. I think that FiiO wants to streamline the design of their amps and DACs, because the knob on the K3 resembles that of the Q1, where it has that red piece around the side, and it's just, I don't know, it's a better feel. It's like almost marginal. Like both knobs feel really good to turn and click on and off. On the front of the E10K, of course, we had the bass boost, and the gain switch was on the back. Now on the K3, both the bass and gain are on the front, so it's a little bit easier to adjust them. Instead of them being like little sticks that you flick on the E10K, they're those round circular knobs that I kind of had an issue with on the Q1, but the ones on the K3 are a little bit better. They stick out a little bit more, so it's a little bit easier to get your thumb in there. So basically what I do is I just put my pointer finger on top of the unit and then use my thumb to adjust, and you don't have to worry about going towards the back at all. So it makes it for a little easier time adjusting if you want more bass or if you need more gain. Both have the 3.5 mil on the front for your headphones, but the difference here is that the K3 has the balanced, which also supports DSD. You guys know how I feel about DSD. I'm not going to go into it again. I will just link you to Batman, or I'll put the meme up again. If you have balanced headphones, plug that baby in and you get more power. We'll talk about power a little bit more in a bit. On the back, both have line out, which is awesome. This is what makes both of these really versatile. You'll just never run out of uses for either. The K3 also has optical out this time around, but does not support optical in, so you cannot use it with your console, which is kind of a Debbie Downer for me. The E10K had micro USB, whereas the K3 has Type C. It's a little more rugged and sturdy. I felt like with the E10K it's a little jiggly, but I feel like Type C is just more solid, more durable, more rugged. When you plug it in, it doesn't really move, whereas with the micro it kind of wiggled around a little bit. I never had an issue with a micro USB cable until, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. One just died, pretty much died. I had to throw it away. I think Type C is becoming more universal, so I'm glad that they made the switch there. Both have the coax, which has a myriad of uses as well. The other difference is that the K3 has USB 1.0 and 2.0 now. With 1.0, you can just plug this in and doesn't need any drivers, and you could start playing immediately. With the 2.0, you will have to go to FiiO's website and download a driver, and I'll put some quick video instructions up there. Just go to their site and download it, and you're good to go. It was super easy and quick. Aside from that, the only other difference was that the gain switch was on the back on the E10K, whereas now it's on the front. The K3's knob is not numbered. If you recall, the E10K's was numbered 0 through 8 with an off in text. The K3's knob is aluminum this time around, and it's also a digital control, meaning you won't get any channel imbalance issues at lower volumes, which is a complaint that I've heard from most people on various different different amps, lower volumes. So you're not going to have any problems this time around. Both have very low noise floor. Also, the volume pot also doubles as the on button, or the on switch. So when you turn it on, it's a little bit of a different blue color than the E10K because it supports higher sample rates. You have a few color indicators. So blue is 44.1 or 48K. Yellow is anything above 48K, and green is DSD. The other difference is that FiiO has their logo on both, but on the E10K when it's facing you, the logo is upside down, so it looks kind of like weird. So they switched that around. They made the logo a little bit smaller and they put it towards the front where you can read it. And also they laser engraved the high-res audio logo towards the top of the unit. So it just looks more professional, more streamlined, and just, I don't know, it feels more solid in your hand a little bit. Not to say that the E10K's build was bad. I mean, it's a really rugged, durable unit. Like, I've dropped it a couple times. It's been okay. But with the K3 in your hand, it just feels like your purchase was more justified and does warrant the price jump about 25, 35 bucks with all these added features. Now, the E10K did not support, it only supported 24-bit 96K, whereas the K3 supports 32-bit and up to 384K. That adds a lot to its value, I think. Yeah, for USB 2.0, after you download the driver, just turn the unit off and do a reboot, and then it'll be ready to go. The USB 2.0 basically supports the DSD 256 and up to 32-bit 384K. The USB 1.0 section only supports up to 24-bit 96K, so that's basically the main difference there. As I mentioned before, they kept coax and line out, which is two of the best features. Basically, you can use either as just a DAC or just an amp. Given that you have a line out 3.5mm interconnect, which they did not include any cables in this package for the K3, which is kind of disappointing. I understand they wanted to maybe keep it small, but I would have liked at least the inclusion of a 3.5mm interconnect, because with that you can plug this into any amp. So I can plug mine into the JDS Atom that I have sitting on my desk, or like something like an X-Can or a Magni or an Objective 2, just basically anything I have. So it's very, very versatile, because a lot of times I don't have a lot of stuff lying around that I can use, but I always, as long as I have an E10K or a K3, I always have something that I can use with another, in conjunction with another amp. Or you could even just plug it into an amp that already has a DAC too, but just use the amp portion of one that provides more power, I guess, like if you needed it for planar magnetics, because you know some of those are not as efficient as a standard open back. With coax, you can use it to connect to any DAC of your choice as well, and it has the optical toslink, which you can also use to connect any DAC of your choice via the SPDIF. Also, you can use this thing using line out to studio monitors, so you can use a 3.5mm to dual XLR, a 3.5mm to dual TRS, or a 3.5mm to dual RCA into any monitor that has any of those options. Like the E10K, it also functions as a converter. Some DACs only have coax and toslink capabilities. If your computer doesn't have those, you can use the E10K to convert the signal from USB to coax and then connect the other DAC to the E10K. So basically it would just look like your PC, a laptop via USB goes into the K3 via coax goes into the other amp that has coax, and then you would just plug your headphones into that amp. E10K does work straight out of a PS4, but the volume doesn't get loud enough, even with the gain switch on, even with the volume turned all the way up in settings, and even with lower impedance, high sensitivity headphones like the V6 is pretty efficient, and it just didn't sound loud enough. So both are bus powered, but I heard that you can use a K3 with your phone, but it kind of tends to drain the battery because it doesn't have a battery inside. The only issue with your phone is that the K3, your phone might give you an error message that says something like this device needs too much power. The good news is that if your phone does have a Type-C port or jack, you can use a Type-C to USB 3.1 female adapter and it should work with your phone, but again, not something that I would rely on like full time. For that, I would just go with a Q1. So let's talk about ergonomics and power output. The K3 actually outputs less power out of the 3.5mm unbalanced than the original E10K, which is a little bit of a downer until you actually put it into practice and use some headphones. The E10K provided 200 milliwatts at 32 ohms, while the newer K3 only provides 220 milliwatts at 16 ohm and 120 milliwatts at 32 ohms. Out of the 2.5mm balanced, the K3 provides 320 milliwatts at 16 ohms and 200 milliwatts at 32 ohms. I'm not entirely sure why. Like, it's really irritating that it doesn't output the same amount out of the 3.5mm jack. You'll have to turn up the volume a little bit more than you would on the E10K, but it's not really like a night and day difference. It just takes a little bit more turning. The good news is that I tested the K3 with an HD600 and I didn't have to use the gain on the K3 at all, which I was kind of surprised by. You'd be surprised. You'll have to turn the volume most of the way up. You're not going to hear anything until about 2 o'clock. The volume pot on the K3 goes all the way around to about 7 o'clock, so you've got a little bit of wiggle room there. Even with the 600s, there's like a little bit of headroom, I think. With certain tracks, you may have to tick the gain on, but with the gain switch on, you're not going to have to turn it up hardly at all. So even though technically the 600s require 20 milliwatts, I think sometimes specs are a little bit overrated. Not overrated, but it's not like a foolproof indicator that you absolutely need something more powerful, at least as far as the HD600 is concerned. Now, I would probably not rely on the K3 to drive like a planar or a Hi-Fi Man or an AKG at like 91 decibel, because that's like wildly inefficient. The HD600s are a little bit more efficient at 97. It's worth a try. Like, I could honestly probably go to Audio Advice and take home like a Sundara and see if it works. It might work. You just don't know. Especially with the gain, it may work just fine. So, how do these sound? I would say with certain tracks, you could hear a clear difference. With the K3, just sounded livelier, like you were in a live setting, with more impact and more thump, more weight. Just crisper and more like you're not listening through a device. But I mean, the differences are subtle, and they don't happen like with every track. So, with Michael Jackson's "Baby Be Mine" off of Thriller, I definitely noticed a clear difference in impact and weight at the start of the song. The kick drums and hats were crisper and more lively, and the instruments seemed more fleshed out, especially like the background instruments. The track as a whole just breathed more naturally than did the E10K. And the running theme with the E10K, which I've mentioned in other videos, though the sound differences are very marginal between, like, say, an E10K, a Dragonfly Red, and even a K3, they're still there. It's just that maybe the E10K always tends to be slightly grainier. It's not something that you would notice unless you had all these other amps to compare side by side with. Like, on its own, the E10K just sounds like fantastic, but with the K3 next to it, you could just tell sometimes the K3 performs just better. Out of that same song, Michael Jackson, the K3 was more organic and natural. It's like the E10K had this ever so slight layer of fog. It's like the best way I can describe it over the sound. It's maybe not given ample room to breathe and express its creativity as much as the K3. I think the K3 just has a better sense of, especially like decay, voices trailing off and stuff like that. The attack and the sustain as well is just a little bit better. But the bass boost on the E10K, I think, was done more tastefully. There were times when the K3's bass boost sounded incredible, and I'll get to that with the HD600 in a second. So maybe it has more to do with the headphones. My first round of testing was with the MDR-V6, and then I also tested it with the HD600s. Listened to a lot of different tracks with the K3, and I felt like the bass boost on some tracks was just, it was like too much. It was like, it tended to muddy up the sound, whereas the E10Ks seemed to be just the right amount. I know that the K3's got a +6 dB boost on the bass, and I just think, like, in many instances it's just a little bit too much, and it doesn't really add anything to the overall sound. And keep in mind, I'm a former bass head, so I kind of used to really like bass. but not as much nowadays because I just think it tends to get overdone. Like your mom's meatloaf.
You hungry? Hey, Ma! Can we get some meatloaf? Chaz, I think I'm okay. I had a bite right before I came over. Thank you.
On Mariah Carey's Fantasy off of Daydream, the bass boost was super muddy and I was pretty disappointed in it. But the overall sound seemed a bit faster, like the transients. But that might be psychological. Like I can't really tell you for sure. If I had the opportunity to do a blind test, maybe it'd be different. I did think the bass boost on the E10K was done much better with this song in particular anyway. There was a few different tracks, maybe not a lot of tracks, but a few different tracks where I felt like the sound was more or less the same on each, which is interesting because there was a clear difference on Michael Jackson's. It seemed like maybe you could make out the background voices easier on the K3 out of the 1975's really, really long track that I'm not going to even say out loud. It's off of A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. I just felt like the background vocals maybe were slightly clearer and more transparent on the K3. But again, not a huge difference. The E10K with the same songs tended to sound just about the same, with the exception being those background vocals. Time for some more coffee.
This is amazing! I feel incredible!
I'd say one of the main differences between a K3 and an E10K would be micro detail, but micro detail in a way that it doesn't sound overly sterile. Like it's just smoother. I tend to overuse the word organic, but I just think that like the K3 does perform better as far as like the character of the artist, like the soul of the artist. Like you could just get a glimpse. Whereas the E10K sometimes lacks a bit of weight and body, and on Fleetwood Mac's Dreams, the opening drum fill didn't sound as full as it did on the K3. I think Dreams is one of the best tracks that I could use to describe the difference between these two amps. Dreams is a fairly detailed and subtly nuanced track. Like there's a lot of really micro things going on in the background. With the K3, I felt like a few more things I picked up on, which is startling considering I've heard the track so many times before. So I think that's the best way I can describe it. Like the K3 just reveals a little bit more, and it sounds better in doing so. It sounds more natural, more as if you're in sort of a studio space. Need more coffee. I'm starting to drag. Gotta have that coffee.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Wow.
Wow. What a hole.
It was weird because there wasn't a lot of difference on Cautious Clay's French Riviera. Maybe the E10K wasn't as refined sounding. That's another good word I could describe. The K3 just sounds more refined and more fleshed out and like cleaner in a more natural, like warmer way. But there's not much difference aside from that. Like I think the K3 sounds a bit less brash and grainy, like I said. The E10K, there's a little bit of grain there. That's been ongoing. I mean, I've had that amp since like October or September of last year, so that's definitely one of the main caveats, I guess. On Too Good to Be True by Gallant featuring Sufjan Stevens, one of my favorite artists. I was surprised to see him on that track, actually. It was really cool. Again, I couldn't tell much of a difference. Maybe the E10K is slightly more sterile and clear. I know I did say the K3 was, I guess, cleaner, but sometimes the E10K is overly sterile, like it's almost trying a bit too hard. I just love the K3 because it's a little bit warmer and lusher, but still incredibly detailed, which makes it sound more natural and a little bit more intimate. So, and there's one more thing I wanted to talk about with the K3. I don't know if this was just the headphones. You know, the HD600 is not really known for having great soundstage, but on the track Lights Out by Sonn, S-O-N-N, and I-L, I've never experienced soundstage this realistic. Like it was so real that it like scares me even thinking about it, because at 38 seconds there's like this knock and it sounds so freaking real. Like it's to your left and like back a little bit, and I could have sworn, even knowing, because I rewound the track a bunch of times, like even knowing it's about to happen, I get scared, and like when it happens, it literally feels like it's inside the room with you. And I've never experienced soundstage that realistic before. You guys have to listen to this track with an open back headphone. It was like panic inducing. Like the first time I heard it, I ripped off the headphones and I jumped up and like ran over to the door and looked through the peephole just to make sure nobody was knocking at the door. Like, that's how real it was. And even every time after that, it was like I was sitting at my desk. It didn't seem like it was coming from the door, but knowing where it was like back. It seemed like it was somebody was like knocking on the wall behind me about, I don't know, 10 feet away. I don't know if that was just the song and how it was mixed, or maybe it was the amp that made this song perform like extremely well. Final word, definitely would take the K3 over the E10K at this point. It's pretty much a no-brainer. It's an extreme improvement in like pretty much every area. You got the choice of balanced or single-ended with regard to headphones. There's the optical out, the inclusion of USB 1.0 or 2.0. 1.0, of course, you don't have to. It's pretty much driverless. Both the gain switch and the bass are on the front this time around. The volume pot as well as the overall build is better. It supports DSD and higher resolution files, and the LED changes colors depending on said file, so that's pretty cool. The only area that the E10K trumps the K3 is the power output out of the single-ended jack, as well as the more tastefully done bass boost overall. But I found that with the HD600s and the bass boost on the K3 was done a little bit better on certain tracks. Not better than the E10K, but I wasn't disappointed with it. I thought it added a nice amount. So it just, I think it really depends on the track. The only other thing I really preferred over the K3 is, this is kind of a minor thing, was the button adhesives on the E10K were much better. Not much better, but just a little bit better to me. The other ones on the K3, the longer ones are fine, but I just felt like the E10K doesn't move at all. Yep, I would go with the K3 overall. With all that said, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this review. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to my growing channel. Let me know what I can do to improve. Let me know what I do well. Let me know what you would like to see next. And with that, one more.
Check 1 2. Hope you enjoyed this review. 2. It was brought to you by Stu. Who? Me, the lyrical G. Empirical dreams slide through like dream. PC gaming, letting off steam. Got bars for days like a prison inmate. A misdemeanor's fate, no debate. When I wake up, okay, start my day with a cup and I pray. I don't faint, I'm a saint of the Most High God. Of the Most High God.